The night was dark and stormy, and the wind howled through the trees. A young couple, Jake and Lisa, were driving on a deserted road, heading to a cabin in the woods for a romantic getaway. They had no idea that they were being followed by a creature of the night, a werewolf that had escaped from a secret laboratory. The werewolf had been experimented on by a mad scientist who had injected him with a serum that made him stronger, faster, and more vicious. The serum also had a side effect. It made the werewolf unable to control his transformations, even during the day. The werewolf had broken free from his cage and had killed the scientist and his guards. He had then smelled the scent of the couple and had decided to make them his next prey. The couple reached the cabin and parked their car. They got out and walked to the door, unaware of the danger lurking behind them. The werewolf leaped out of the shadows and pounced on Jake, biting his neck and tearing his flesh. Lisa screamed and ran into the cabin, locking the door behind her. She looked for a phone, but there was none. She was trapped, alone, with a monster outside. She heard the werewolf howl and then scratch at the door. She grabbed a kitchen knife and waited for the inevitable. The door gave way and the werewolf entered the cabin. He sniffed the air and located Lisa, who was hiding behind a couch. He growled and lunged at her. She stabbed him in the chest, but the knife broke. The werewolf was unfazed and grabbed her by the throat. He lifted her up and prepared to bite her head off. Suddenly he stopped. He looked at her and his eyes changed. They became human and filled with pain. He dropped her and fell to the floor, clutching his chest. He began to transform, his fur receding, his claws shrinking, his teeth shortening. He became a man, a naked man, covered in blood. He looked at Lisa and whispered, "Help me." Lisa was stunned. She recognized the man. He was Mark, her ex-boyfriend, who had disappeared a year ago. She had loved him, but he had broken up with her, saying he had to leave for a while. She had never heard from him again. Until now. She realized that he was the werewolf, that he had killed Jake, and that he had tried to kill her. She felt a mix of emotions: shock, anger, fear, pity, and love. She crawled to him and held him in her arms. He was dying. The serum had finally taken its toll. He looked at her and smiled weakly. He said, "I'm sorry, Lisa. I never wanted to hurt you. I loved you, but I had to leave. I was infected by a werewolf and I was taken by the scientist. He made me a monster, but I never forgot you. You were the only thing that kept me sane. I escaped, and I followed you. I wanted to see you one last time, but I couldn't control myself. I'm sorry, Lisa, I love you." He kissed her and then closed his eyes. He was gone. Lisa cried and hugged him. She didn't know what to do. She was alone in a cabin in the woods with 2 dead bodies and a storm raging outside. She wished she could wake up from this nightmare, but she knew it was real. She had lost everything and she had no hope. She was doomed. Lisa decided to bury Mark and Jake in the woods, hoping that no one would find them. She felt guilty for what had happened, but she also felt a strange connection to Mark, even after his death. She wondered if there was a way to bring him back, to cure him of his curse. She remembered that he had mentioned a scientist who had experimented on him. She wondered if he had left any clues, any records, any samples of the serum that had changed him. She searched the cabin and found a backpack that belonged to Mark. She opened it and found a laptop, a USB drive, a syringe, and a vial of liquid. She turned on the laptop and plugged in the USB drive. She saw that it contained several files, some of them encrypted. She tried to open them, but they asked for a password. She guessed that the password was Lisa, and she was right. She opened the files and saw that they were Mark's diary entries, his notes, and his videos. She read his diary entries and learned more about his life as a werewolf. He had been bitten by a werewolf while hiking in the mountains and had survived. He had tried to hide his condition but he had been discovered by the scientist who had kidnapped him and taken him to his laboratory. There, he had been subjected to various tests and injections that had made him more powerful, but also more unstable. He had suffered a lot, but he had never given up hope. He had always thought of Lisa and had written to her every day, even though he knew she would never read his words. She watched his videos and saw his transformations, his struggles, his pain. She also saw his escape, his journey, his pursuit of her. She saw how he had followed her and Jake, how he had waited for the right moment to attack. She saw how he had killed Jake and how he had tried to kill her. She also saw how he had stopped, how he had recognized her, how he had loved her. She saw his last moments, his last words, his last kiss. She looked at his notes and saw his research, his experiments, his discoveries. He had tried to find a cure for his condition using the serum that the scientist had given him. He had learned that the serum was a mixture of werewolf blood and human DNA, that it enhanced the werewolf genes, but also suppressed the human ones. He had tried to reverse the process by adding more human DNA to the serum, hoping to restore his humanity. He had tested the modified serum on himself, but it had failed. He had only managed to delay his transformations, but not to stop them. He had also noticed that the serum had a side effect. It made him immortal. He could not die, unless he was killed by silver or fire. She looked at the syringe and the vial, and realized that they contained the modified serum. She wondered what would happen if she injected herself with it. Would she become a werewolf like Mark? Would she be able to join him in death or in life? Would she be able to see him again somehow, somewhere? She felt a strong temptation, a desperate hope, a reckless love. She decided to take the risk, to take the chance, to take the serum. She picked up the syringe and filled it with the liquid. She rolled up her sleeve and found a vein. She inserted the needle and pushed the plunger. She felt a surge of pain and then a wave of heat. She dropped the syringe and fell to the ground. She began to convulse, to twitch, to change. She felt her bones break, her muscles grow, her skin tear. She felt her teeth sharpen, her nails lengthen, her hair thicken. She felt her eyes widen, her ears perk, her nose sniff. She felt her mind blur, her memories fade, her instincts take over. She felt her humanity slip away and her animality emerge. She became a werewolf, a monster, a beast. She howled and then ran out of the cabin. She smelled the blood and followed the trail. She reached the graves and dug them up. She found the bodies and tore them apart. She ate the flesh and drank the blood. She felt a satisfaction, a hunger, a thirst. She felt a connection, a bond, a love. She felt Mark, his presence, his spirit, his soul. She felt him inside her, beside her, with her. She felt him alive, again, with her. She felt him happy again with her. She felt him love her again with her. She howled and then ran into the woods. She was free, she was wild, she was alive. She was with Mark. She was like Mark. She was Mark. She was a werewolf, a lover, a mate. She was doomed. She was blessed. She was happy. She was Lisa. She was Mark. She was Lark. She was one.